Welcome, everyone. And let's begin, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we have quite a few actions to report out of closed session. And we're going to start with student suspension and expulsions. I need a motion for case number 1450067. That's the green sheet we were looking at.
Move approval of the readmit.
Second.
It's approved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Pugh. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Yes. Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Close?
Oh, sorry.
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Yes.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. Now we'll move on to the yellow sheets, and we'll start with student case number 036064.
I move that the board approve the expulsion but reject the recommendation of the panel for a suspension of the expulsion and instead direct the student to community school.
Second.
That was moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Pugh. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye, thank you. Student cases, again on the yellow, 037061.
Can we do both of the yellows?
Yes, and then we can move on to then 040 and 063.
Move recommendation of the panel on both cases.
Second.
That was moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Hanel. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Close? Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. Okay, we'll move on to the pinks. Should we do these, do you want to do these the same way?
Yep, I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation panel on all three cases.
Second.
Motion by moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Hanel. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. Thank you. Statements of abstention. Director Carl.
I have to abstain, as has always been the case, on item E6, the Fir Ridge project.
As do I. That has to do with the Fir Ridge property. Any other abstentions? No. Adjustments to the agenda?
I would like E6 pulled, please, to be dealt with separately.
When we come to it, that's all we have to do, right?
Yes,
You mean-
just vote on it separately.
Right. Adjustments to the agenda, any adjustments to the agenda? You just did that, sorry. Board member request for information. Director Hanel.
Yes, I read in the board report that 25 teachers attended the GLAD training for secondary, and there were positive responses. I'd like to see those responses. Thank you.
President Jay?
Go ahead.
I also would like to request that we bring the issue of locks back, about putting an RFP for the cost of locks and/or magnets. I know that we have a process to go through to determine what we're spending our bond money on, but it is such a small amount of money comparatively, and I think such an important safety issue that I'd like to bring it back sooner if possible.
Thank you. Do I have approval of the minutes? I need a motion.
Move approval of the June 10th minutes. Actually, there's a change on that. Director Gonzalez's name under absent and absent on the closed and open session.
They've been revised.
Okay, that's been resolved.
revised them.
Okay. With that having been resolved, I'll move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Close. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. Superintendent Shields, did you want to say something about that request? Did I cut you off before? No, okay. Now we get to public comments of items not on the agenda. Members of the public may bring before the board matters that are not listed on the agenda. The board shall take no action or discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda except as authorized by law. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Should a member of the public have comments that pertain to a complaint against an employee of the district, the board advises that the matter should be first pursued using the appropriate district complaint procedure. That's BB 93236. Is there anybody here who wants to speak for make a public comment items not on the agenda? Seeing no one, we'll move on to employee association reports. No report tonight. From SRTA, Tammy Afonso? No. Okay, nothing from CSEA 75. And what about CSEA 367? No. Moving right along, superintendent report.
Good evening, everyone. I want to share an exciting opportunity that the district has had and so many people have taken advantage in terms of our staff, and that's the visiting of the Museum of Tolerance. We were awarded a grant as an organization to send staff to the Museum of Tolerance for 2 or 3 days in terms of training. There were some that happened during the school year. There were a few that were able to take place at the end of this school year. And the Museum of Tolerance was awarded this as a 1-year grant. That experience has come back and been very supported by our staff, who wished that leadership would also participate in this event because it was so powerful. We were able to schedule a staff and community leadership training so that the leadership of the district could certainly partake in the same experience that so many of our staff have experienced. And it's been nearly 200 teachers, classified leaders, and others who have been able to experience the Museum of Tolerance. And in light of the national events that have taken place in South Carolina and everything that's happened in our own community, it really is an important step that we take together. The Museum of Tolerance will be continuing this work with us in the upcoming year. We will continue to send staff, both classified and certificated. We will look to be able to bring other community leaders who were unable to travel with us because of certain budget cycles that did not allow them to leave the area. And we look forward to a collaborative partnership with SRTA and CTA in terms of an implicit bias training that CTA has been a leader of in terms of statewide discussion around how this affects education. One of the things we know clearly is that there's ongoing work for us as an institution, our policy and our practices, our role as individuals, and the role of data. But there's also an ongoing work in our broader community where the schools reflect the neighborhoods they are in, and that their policies and practices at the community and greater governmental institutions that also have to be addressed so that our schools can serve all our students well. It was rewarding and assuring to have such a strong coalition of interests participate. We had members from community-based organizations, other government entities, longtime community advocates, and we will seek to continue to create those opportunities so that we have those broad discussions. I think it was reiterated not only how important it is we show up as individuals, but also that we take responsibility for our individual actions and also our collective actions and engage in those conversations that make the difference for our students. So I want to thank everyone who attended with us. There were nearly 30 members of the community who agreed to come with not much information. They were able to Google what the Museum of Tolerance was and what it began to have an idea of what the experience was, but it wasn't completely spelled out. We all kind of, like the teachers before us, took a leap of faith into what the experience might be, and it was very rewarding, reflective, at times emotional, and certainly at times scary, thinking about our history in the past and what has happened, and it was brought into the real future, thinking about the events that happened in Charlotte. So I commend the district for its work, certainly Diane and her leadership, Elizabeth Evans, who took great care with so many groups traveling. It really can be a nightmare to have all those ducks in a row, and to the extent that it could be made easy, it was, and I really appreciate that hard work that allowed for the hard work to take place once we were in Los Angeles. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I attended this event, and it was extremely moving and impactful, and I found it definitely relates to the work that we do as board members and how we relate to our community, interact with our community members, interact with our students, and our entire district, all of our entire district, all employees. I would have to say that all of the trainings I've gone to in the 10 years that I've been on the board, this was the most important to me in terms of my work, and also personally impactful, where I could see myself in certain situations, and I could apply, I know that I can apply what I learned there to my work on the board, and also just my work as a human being, my existence in the human being as a community, in the community. We had two really exceptional keynote speakers. One was a Holocaust survivor named Betty. I'm sorry, I don't remember Betty's last name, but Betty is 94 years old, and she talked to us for an hour and 15 minutes. We hung on every word she said, and they finally had to pull her out of the room and say, Betty, you're done, because these people have to move on. But Betty survived Auschwitz, and I forget that she was in 2 concentration camps. The reason Betty survived with 7 other women, was because she was the victim of medical experiments. And so they wanted to keep her alive until they were done with her. But Betty was the most resilient human being that I have ever encountered. She survived. She told us she basically survived because she was hoping that her fiance had survived in another concentration camp. Miraculously, they both did, and they found each other after the war. And her life has been a testament to the Nazis, and that they were not going to interrupt her life, and she was going to go on and flourish and have a family of her own, which she did. Really, really, the positivity coming from her was just absolutely amazing. And the second day, we heard from Dr. Terrence Roberts, who was one of the Little Rock Nine, and he shared his experience with us about that. And then he's gone on to, he is a psychologist, and so he's taken what he's learned, and he now counsels individuals, but he also works as a consultant. He lives in California now and has his own consulting firm, and he consults for school districts. I would guess anybody who would want to talk with him about race and prejudice and bias. He was, I found him very charming, but also entertaining, very, very witty, very sly. You listen to what he was saying, it was almost like he was always saying 2 things at the same time, you know. But again, that hour and a half just flew by. So again, I can't say enough about this. Oh, and I did want to say the best trainer that I've ever experienced. Here's Stephanie, who I hope comes before us as a board and does a special session with us. She doesn't let you get away with a thing. She listens to every single word. And she manages to, she does not offend. She'll go right up to the point where you're kind of getting uncomfortable and she pulls back. And then, you know, but that's the beauty of it, is she's so good, you don't get offended. You listen and you learn, and she's engaging. She engages everyone. So it was excellent. That's the end of my report. So now I'd like to go on to board member reports. Director Pugh, you want to start?
I'll pass, thank you.
Okay. Christoph, okay.
Well, I also went to the experience of Museum of Tolerance. And the reason I went, I didn't know what to expect. And it's because I heard from teachers. It was just an amazing 2 days. And I got so much out of it. And to add on to what Donna said, I think the key is that, you know, they had us look at who we are in a very non-threatening way. And before I went, I thought, you know, are they going to be probing me as to, they're going to find out I'm this way or that way, or, you know, who am I, and all these hidden things. And that wasn't it at all. And then also we got into groups and we talked to one another as to what it was like in our experience. So we learned from one another, and then we had some really interesting discussions. And what I was really pleased about is that all the teachers and administrators are going to have a chance. And this is grant money. And the Museum of Tolerance has a whole bunch of grant money. We saw police officers go through. They're doing a whole lot of work. And that all of us in the district will have a chance to participate in this. And the beauty of that is that we're going to be able to look at ourselves and as a collective body and see, actually, where do we want to go? And so we're all going to have this commonality, this experience. And from that experience, it'll become a tool I see it as a tool for consensus to drive the district in the direction in which we want to do. And in order for change to happen, you have to have buy-in. And everyone's going to, I've never heard someone come out of this conference and say, you know, it's kind of a bummer. It wasn't. They all come out with their eyes wide open and go, wow, I learned something about our society, because we did get to go through the Holocaust Museum and we experienced that. And then also we experienced the Holocaust in its totalities after the Holocaust of World War II. We saw other Holocausts, and this is really a human condition.
Yeah.
And so we get a chance to look at ourselves, and we get a chance to look at us as individuals, like Donna and everyone I talked to. And I met some great community members. That was one of the great experiences, is meeting new people. We got a chance to look at ourselves, and we learned something. The second thing I want to talk about is today, this is Live Music Lantern. And some of you might already know about this. And this is a nonprofit organization that wants to support, and I'm going to read up from their little brochure. We provide self-care in the form of live music to educators and social service providers. Why do we do this? Too often, educators and social workers are unappreciated, overextended, expected just to deal with it. We believe it's our responsibility to show these individuals how much we value and support their efforts and provide them with the means to rejuvenate. Why live music? Live music has the power to inspire, educate, help people heal from compassion fatigue and secondary trauma. So today they offered, and all the teachers in our district got this invitation, and I believe I was there when we were handing out the tickets. And I don't have the official number, but I'm guessing it's close to 100. Actually experienced Broadway Under the Stars. And this is a group that does Jack London, and they are amazing. I mean, it was just an upbeat, great performance. And so I want to thank Live Music Lantern for letting me attend this. And you can also support them, if you like, by going to, it's a nonprofit, going to www.livemusiclantern.org. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Corll.
Thank you. I wanted to comment on one of the information items that we received in this packet. I've done this before. It always astounds me, and I think it's nice to celebrate. This year we had over $4.3 million in scholarships awarded to our seniors. And that is a testament to the work put in by the students, but also the work put in by classified, certificated, and administrative staff to assist the students in making these applications. That was an increase of almost 10% over the previous year. And obviously a lot of really good work by a lot of really good folks and staff of our district to assist these students, not just get them through and get them a graduation, but also help them as they make their next step. So congratulations to everybody, not only the students, but all the support staff that supported those students to get $4.3 million in money. That's pretty cool.
Thank you. Director Close.
I have nothing to report, but I do want to take this opportunity to give a plug for North Bay Organizing Project's event tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at the Arlene Francis Center, where they're going to show a documentary about ethnic studies in schools, which I think should be interesting, and I will be there.
Thank you. Under the President's report, I meant to make an announcement that I hope everyone remembers that there is only one meeting in July, board meeting in July. So there is no meeting on July 8th, and our next meeting is July 22nd. Okay, now, oh, Frank, do you have a CSBA, NSBA report?
I do. It'll be brief, and I also have a request as well. The National School Board Association recently had their Board of Directors meeting in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That is the home city of our current president, John Tuttle. We had a great conversation about the procedures of how we operate as an organization. We also talked about our nonprofit side as well as our advocacy side of the business. A trend that we're starting to pick up across the nation is that there are many parents who are opting out of state and federal testing. It's becoming a major issue, especially in New York, of all places. But we may be seeing some of that here, I don't know. But it would be good to know if it is happening and what we can do to sort of make our parents confident that testing is the right thing for everyone. And then I'd also want to let the board know, and it's something you may want to consider attending, the Advocacy Institute is our lobbying arm, our lobbying activity, and it'll take place in DC, and it will happen on January 24th through the 26th. And I would really encourage this board to attend and see what it's all about, to go to Congress, meet with your senators, meet with your Congress people, and actually talk more. It's actually more useful to talk to the aides because they're the ones that actually get the work done, and to reach out and share our story because they're so far away from us. What they think is happening is not actually the case. So I would encourage the board to consider attending the Advocacy Institute in Washington, D.C., January 24th through the 26th. This weekend, I'm traveling up to Fairbanks, Alaska, to attend the Pacific Region meeting, and we'll be going over a constitution and bylaws resolutions and such at that time. And then CSBA, we're happy in some respects that the budget has basically been finalized. There'll be no challenge on that. However, we did have an agreement on the resolution of the reserve cap, but it was scuttled at the last moment. And so now we're running radio ads in the major markets, putting pressure on our legislators to remove the cap on our reserves. And then lastly, there'll be a leadership meeting coming up in Chicago later this year in August. And the California School Board Association will be hosting a reception in my honor to try to influence the next election of officers at NSBA. And that's my report. Now, I do have a request. I'd like to pull item E16 just for a quick question. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now I need a motion on our consent items.
Move items E1 through 5, 7 through 14, and 16 through 28.
Second.
Yeah. I excluded E15. 7 through 14 and 16 through 28. You want 15 or
16.
He wants 16
1-5,
pulled.
correct?
1-6.
1-6.
1-6.
It's old ears, so I changed my motion. It's, my motion is for E1 through 5, 7 through 15, and 17 through 28.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're too far apart here, Frank. I
We
can't
are.
hear you.
Second.
So that was moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Hanel. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. So now we're going to move to E6, where Director Carl and I have recused ourselves. So
I'll move approval.
need a second?
Oh,
So that was,
I have a question.
oh, go ahead, Frank.
On item E6, the question I had, this deals with the resolution to amend the Fur Ridge Holding Agreement. And it's pretty specific in the agreement what's being agreed to, which is looking at low-income housing for faculty, staff, employees of the district. But my understanding is we're not necessarily limited to that as we look down the road. We could look at it as for educational issues and opportunities that yet may be defined. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yes, you are correct. What we really needed to do is we needed to get an extension so we'd have an opportunity to discuss those options with the city.
Great.
And so that's really what this is this is giving us the opportunity to ask for a 2-year extension, to have that time, to have that opportunity.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I need a second.
Second.
So that was moved by Director Close, seconded by Director Pugh. Roll call vote, please.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Carl?
Abstain.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
President Jay?
Abstain. Okay, now E16, we move to E16.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I have a question on E16, and it's swell to see the tentative agreement and all that. But on circle page 2, I did have a question about the projection for the year 16, 17. It lists as zeros. Can I have a little more explanation about that?
Well, because it is a 2-year agreement, that's why we left that blank. One option that you do have available is that you could put in what step and column would be in that 3rd year, but because it is a 2-year agreement, we're only required to fill in the 2 years.
Okay. And then, does this get filed with the county?
Yes.
All right. And has the county suggested this is, do we have any indication? Because typically, we have typically done a 3-year projection and accounted for the monies in the 3rd year. But is this something new the county has changed their position on, or is it we're waiting to see, or what do you think?
I can't speak for here. I know that in the counties that I've been in before, this is how we've done it as well.
Okay.
And we did check with the district, or the accountant at SCO that is assigned to our district, and they're fine with it as well.
Oh, great. That's just what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Carl?
But it's true, Steve, that in our budget, that is an entire budget that is sent to the county, there is an assumption that is made relative to salaries and benefits to reach the number so that we have a specific reserve set forth in that budget, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so I need a motion on E16.
Move approval?
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Hanel. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye.
Okay, now let's move on to our F agenda items. First is transitioning Lewis Opportunity School to the Bridge Academy.
President Jay, Superintendent Shields, members of the board, thank you very much. Yes, we would like to present to you tonight some information concerning a transition we're making with Lewis Opportunity. So you've probably seen in your board report, so what is the Bridge Academy? This is actually the name that the middle school principals came up when we began to discuss the fact that with the move of the Santa Rosa Arts Charter to the Lewis facility and the placement of Lewis at another site, or maybe taking a look at some things differently, the principals collaborated together with me, and we started forming this idea about a school within a school. So in actuality, taking a look at what was happening with Lewis and what was happening with students who attended Lewis, and thinking about how do we, in the spirit and the guidance of building a restorative community, take a different look at the way we are working with students from the middle school when they may be struggling and getting into a little bit of trouble. So that's where we began talking about the school within a school model. So when we took a look at that, what we identified was that, and we have some data that we can share with you as well, that the traditional idea of the way we were doing Lewis may not be recognizing what we believe students can do in terms of change. In other words, students may have gotten into some trouble. They were sent to what we called an ARPC, Administrative Review Placement Committee, I believe. Their case was looked at, and again, we're talking about 12 and 13-year-olds. And there was a determination for, different reasons that they be placed in a location away from their school site, and that it was a pretty homogeneous group. So in other words, there were many kids come together, and they've all gotten in trouble. And just looking at data and looking at what was happening, we were just finding that it was not really a place where kids' behavior was changing, that we could reintroduce them back to their school sites and they'd be ready to go and ready to work in a school community. So working together again, we just wanted to do something different. We wanted to look at some of the things that we're doing, whether it's average strategies. These are the best research-based and common sense practices. The work we're doing with the restorative, the behavioral health services work that we're doing, the multi-tiered system of support. We were definitely not looking at that, the mountains, in terms of how we were placing kids at the location, and then within the location, were we looking at a tiered way in which kids could move out of the system, where they could gain and accelerate, whether it be academically or behaviorally. So even within the Lewis system, we weren't using a multi-tiered system of support. And finally, the thing that was most disturbing to me, and you're going to hear more about this as we look at our alternative education programs, but when we look at straight ethnicity, okay, we are disproportionate in the number of Latino students who are placed in our alternative education. It is not matching the demographics of the district. In fact, it is far over in terms of percentage. Okay? So why? This was the work of the middle school principals coming together, because I actually, to be honest with you, I asked them to come and help me solve this problem. What do we do with our students? What do we do with Lewis Opportunity, with this opportunity to move the charter, to get the charter school renovated, but also take a look at an opportunity of how could we do things differently? How might we take a look at the system we've created for our students and do something that will truly change behavior and allow them not to be trapped into alternative education the rest of their school career. Because many times in the 7th and 8th grade, when that happens, they never get out of that track. And we just don't want that to happen. We talk about gaps, and we heard about this at the Museum of Tolerance as well. And when do our students, our struggling students, ever get to an opportunity to close those gaps, whether they are social, emotional, or whether they're academic? What we see in our current system is the gaps only grow larger. And so how can we do something differently in order to lessen those gaps and really get kids back into school, the traditional school, so that they can be college and career ready like everybody else? And then we talk about the healing that needs to happen for these students in many ways. And then I talked again about the data, and so I'll share that with you too when I pass that out. So how does it work? So the principals have come together, and really space is of an issue at each site, but they're so committed to working with their students, their own struggling students. They wanted to find space, and they have. Each one of the 5 middle school principals have found a dedicated classroom. This was very important to the principals. They really wanted a bridge teacher who was that child's advocate every single day, all the time. That child had someone they could go to and would advocate for them. And sometimes it's warm and fuzzy, and sometimes it's not so warm and fuzzy. So I want to make that very clear. We also felt it was important to have an instructional assistant in the classroom as well, just because they could work together as a team. Sometimes you need to have different ways of handling situations. And we want, the gaps and the support to also be supported by additional staff. It's very important that the principals definitely wanted to have individual learning plans for the students so that we could determine where they are academically, social, emotionally, have goals for them when they leave, when they exit, and then work towards those goals during their time there. They came up with something called, I'm going to look, don't want to make a mistake on here. When they were accepted or admitted into the Bridge Academy, they would have a positive agreement for student success, or a PASS. So I thought that was a wonderful addition. So again, you can see it's really asset building rather than deficit building. It's really looking at, yeah, the student may be struggling for various reasons, but that's not a negative thing. And we are not fixing this child, but really helping them to gain and learn. And this was very important, and I will say specifically for Kathy Coker, who she amazes me, but they needed to start the day with routines. And what she specifically said was a waffle. That they needed to have a waffle. But what she meant by that is that in having a waffle together, you're creating community. And what you could disguise and teach in there are some manners, some social skills, some give and take, and really to check in. Check in because that child may have had issues that happened that night before, that in a traditional model could have he or she blow out during the school day, but in here, they could debrief on it, decompress on it, and then move forward with their daily goals. What we want to have happen is for students to have access to the same curriculum that their peers are getting in the traditional school setting. And within this school, within a school model, that can happen. Along with it, it's going to be very project-based, very maker project-oriented, experiential learning with culminating projects. And we'll be more than happy and pleased and can't wait to come back to talk to you about that because we have many, many ideas about how students will. And you've heard some of the things where when they, well, I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it because it's good stuff. And then to end the day in the same way that they started, with a routine of checking in. And I think this last part, going home feeling strong and valued, okay? Not defeated, not like I don't belong, but really like, okay, I've accomplished something today, and I can continue to do that day after day till I'm not in the Bridget Academy anymore. So this is another important piece and something a little different, and that is when you re-enter from the Bridge Academy to the larger school, that the student would actually lead a conference about their accomplishments during their time there through the portfolio that they're going to gather along the way. And it really is to help determine their readiness for reentry. And you can see the team that'll be made up of that, the makeup of the team that will be reviewing that. We also want to include the school that they're at, the bigger picture, so that we've talked many times about our students coming from alternative settings and how they re-enter. And it is extremely important to all of our team, and not just the Bridge Academy, but any student entering from an alternative setting, that it isn't just a drop and go, that there is a meeting, there is a body there to welcome the student back. They've done what they've done. It's time to move forward. And so this emulates that when that student goes back into the larger school picture, everybody's ready and welcome to receive the student. So you can see how that works.
Also, since it's local at every school, a student, because of their individual education plan or their learning plan, they can work their way quarter by quarter in, say, they've done a great job, they have good grades, they haven't gotten in trouble, they're meeting their goals. Let's integrate this student 2 periods a day back into the regular curriculum. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. And then if they continue to succeed, then the rewards are they continue to be integrated back into the regular school. And if they fall back, then they go back to the academy and start working on their goals again, which couldn't be done when it was offsite.
So that actually concludes our report. And Matt actually wanted to say a couple more things, too.
Yeah, if I may. Just a couple things. Need my glasses here. I think this is going to be an award-winning program. I'm really excited about it as a principal. When Diane came to us and told us the dilemma and just kind of set us loose with our creative juices, we ran crazy. We asked for more time. We needed, and the emails were flying everywhere. Kathy Coker was inspirational, given that she retired and still put this kind of energy into it and still sends emails about it is pretty amazing. So the fact that it's homegrown and has buy-in is going to make a huge difference. The other is the neighborhood factor. In the past, we'd work with a student all year long. We're on a first name basis. I'd call, hey, Julie, how you doing? This is Matt. Uh-oh, what do you do? And then the conversation would go from there. But by the end of the year, we're running out of, interventions, and it starts getting stressful. And when we talk about force placing a student at, an off-site location, then the partnership and the first-name basis, the camaraderie that we've worked together all year building crumbles. And you've seen the result of that as a board. You've had to deal with expulsion hearings and things like that. And I think this is really going to prevent that, because one of the biggest problems parents had about sending their students to Lewis is it was out of their neighborhood, which really means away from their support network. Their pickup and drop-off now has to change. Their after-school care is complicated. If they have tutoring or other services, that all has to change. And so what was a partnership becomes confrontational at a hearing, which is really unfortunate. I'd like to end with a little story here. So I think the neighborhood factor is going to be huge. I had a student, call him Joe, and he was off the rails as a 7th grader all year long, driving us crazy, a lot of low-level stuff, disruptive, rude, and by the end of the year, everyone was exasperated, myself, the parents, the staff, everybody. And this is normally when things start falling apart with the family, because we don't have any more tools. And so I explained the concept of the Bridge Academy to these parents, and they were ecstatic, because here are parents who desperately want to help their 12-year-old son. They don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. And here's an on-site, neighborhood-driven program that is here to help their kids. And they leaped at the chance. They can't wait for 8th grade to start, and they can enroll their son in our Bridge Academy, and he can be at our site and start making some amazing progress. So the fact that this doesn't have to be a forced placement, that parents, I think, are going to be volunteering, to put their kids in these programs, that's a huge paradigm shift for us. So there we go.
Thank you.
Good report, thank you.
Thank you.
Larry, did
Any
you want to say something?
questions?
Well, I have a comment and a couple questions. First of all, I'm just very happy about the process. You got a problem. We know Lewis has been a problem, and you called in your people, and they figured it out. And it sounds really, very positive. I have a couple questions. One, I know Lewis was a drain financially. What are your prospects? How would this affect fiscally? It's not listed. I wonder if there's any projections on this. And I'm also wondering if supplemental funds can be used.
So I think you saw in the report the staff that was involved in terms of Lewis Opportunity. We are utilizing those FTE, because actually the people that were on the FTE that were in the board report, we've actually are utilizing them in other areas that we need and they wanted to do. And so we still have that 3.6, I think FTE is what I listed on the board report. We need to add a bit more, like 1.6, which I am funding through supplemental funds.
Okay. And then secondly, entrance. Before, Lewis has been, it comes as a board, they're up for expulsion, and it's
No.
suspended. No, but before, I'm just saying,
Oh.
before, and then we would, make the decision, we send him to Lewis. So now that will be handled really on site as a site decision as to when that student goes to the Bridge Academy?
For some cases, for cases that the site wants to handle within their site for things that happen for students, if there is a disciplinary issue and the recommendation of the panel is for them to go to, in this case, the Bridge Academy, they will still go to the Bridge Academy rather than Lewis, but it will be at their site. So if the child was being brought up at Rincon, then they would come to the Rincon at Bridge.
And it
the
even could
Bridge
be,
at Rincon.
and it still could be a suspended expulsion.
It has to be a suspended.
It has to be.
Yeah,
To
if it's
get
a
in.
full expulsion, it will be out of the district.
But you can enroll without a suspended expulsion. You can enroll if the site determines that that child is right for the Bridge Academy.
Correct. They have already developed a 3-tiered system, the middle school principals, about what happens at each level. And interestingly, it follows the MTSS, which is great. The other thing I want to make note that Matt didn't talk about is that they have talked with their staffs about this extensively. So their teachers, their staff know about this, and we're actually very, very excited about it.
That's great. That was going to be my last question. So
How did I know that?
I think that's, you've got buy-in, and I see it as a very positive development.
What we think is there's going to be more kids wanting to get in than we can serve.
Especially if you start with a waffle.
Exactly, and not Eggo.
Yeah, I'll be in line.
Director Carl and then Director Christoph.
First of all, turn on your mic. A few questions. I am encouraged about the process. We've been talking about Lewis Adult for many, many years, and how can we do something different, because it's a placeholder, for lack of anything else, and I don't think anybody felt that that we were really moving the majority of kids. Some, yes, but frankly, more often than not, our suspensions that came out of Lewis Adult because it wasn't changing anything, and that was true today. So I'm encouraged by that, and I'm encouraged by the involvement of the principals at each of the sites and of the staffs to figure out how to deal with it. I think it is critical to understand what the budget implications, because we don't have a fiscal. My presumption is there won't be a need for a secretary. There won't be a need for a camper supervisor, because that already exists. There won't be a need for a custodian. There won't be a need for an administrator, because the administrator already exists. I am a little concerned about the counselor aspect of it, because it's increasing a substantial amount on counselors that exist on the site, and I'm wondering what kinds of discussion there has been had, because your meetings suggest that the counselor's right in the middle of it, which makes sense. And depending on the numbers of kids, that could be a pretty substantial increase in daily responsibility. Presumably the kid change hasn't been, it's the same kid, it's just they're, instead of being in this classroom, they're in that classroom, they're on the same campus. But part of this whole process is a more intense involvement from that. So I'd like to understand what discussions or how you might look at that. If you have an answer, I'll go ahead.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
so in terms of the staffing, they've been absorbed in positions that were currently open.
right.
So the fiscal kind of is a wash. In terms of the classified staff that you were talking about, the secretary, the campus supervisor, we need those staff in other places.
Understood.
And, the counseling would come from either the bilingual counselor, the LCAP bilingual counselor, SAY, Tier 2 and Tier 3 services, not from the school counselor who does the universal services.
Okay. Have we done a budget analysis on this in terms of, because obviously without an administrator, there's a cost that we don't have anymore. I mean, there's some costs that we won't have, and there's some costs that have to be added. So it'd be helpful to understand, what that looks like. And I assume that we'll get that back the next time this comes to the board. Is that fair?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, one thing is, this was not a release of an administrator. This didn't happen before March 15th, so that administrator is still employed in the district and will have a different responsibility for this year. But these decisions, because they came after the March 15th notice, there was no way to reduce in force, but we do have ongoing discussions about staffing at sites and supervision, so that's still an ongoing discussion.
Okay. How many students at Lewis? It's in the 50, 55 range, is that right?
Less than that. This
Is it
last
less?
year it was less than that. I have some data, but this was at C-beds, I believe it was 19, which is early October, 19 students.
Okay.
Cumulative overall, there wasn't data for this already for 14, 15, but it's right around 30.
Okay.
By what I look at in the system, right around 30.
And I doubt that it's, I doubt you can divide by 5 and say that there are 6 from every site
No.
that are there.
No.
So what kind of projections are there in terms of the expectation at each one of the sites and the number of kids? And is there a cap where there's really, because of the site constraints, I assume we're talking about one classroom, what's the thought process there?
Where we're estimating is 25 by the 5 sites.
Okay.
Yeah, to be the cap.
And each of the principals feels that there are likely that many, if not more, that would be interested in this as a bridge.
As the year goes on. It won't happen right at the beginning.
Right.
But what we are going to have happen is the bridge teachers who hired at the beginning of the year will actually get to know students by pushing into classrooms,
Okay.
you know, so.
One of our responsibilities as a board is to assure safety on campuses. And while the number of suspensions and expulsions that we've seen at the board level is significantly reduced, most of them that we get at the board level are pretty significant in terms of potential safety issues, and oftentimes involve situations where there has been contact between the offender and several other students at that site, which then raises the question of what kinds of things we do to alter bell schedules so they don't show up at the same time, they don't leave at the same time. Apparently that's already been discussed.
Yeah, one of the things the principals wanted to make sure is that it has a later start time and an earlier release time and different breaks and lunches. So it's at the same site, but they won't be, mingling with people that they had friction with before.
Great. And I assume there's also flexibility that in those very extraordinary circumstances, there might be a decision that it would be better that they would be at the bridge group at another site. There may be a few of those a year. I doubt there are many, but I suspect that that's an option that's, Diane says yes, and Matt says we hadn't really talked about that.
Yeah.
We've talked about it. It isn't going to be the first option. It will
Right.
not
We'll
be the
clearly
first option.
understand that.
And really, I left it, it's going to be up to the principals.
Right.
They work very well together, and they'll make that decision. And of course, as you say, safety is of the utmost priority. There may be decisions that we will not have a student in Bridge. We may have to have them go out of district. So we're going to be very, very cognizant of that.
I have no intention of substituting my judgment regarding your sites, but I'm amazed that there actually was a location at all of the sites. And some of them I can think that's probably doable, but I guess you guys have worked really hard to find that and are satisfied that it exists.
Well, it was amazing if we could provide a storage that Assistant Superintendent Eichmann helped us with, that balls and bats and things like that could actually go to a storage and not take up a classroom. So it's good.
There you go. And I assume that the sites that you've located on each of the middle schools, there isn't a cost associated. In other words, we're having to bring in a portable or something along those lines.
Rinkin is the only site that is impacted. They're impacted anyway, no matter if we were bringing Bridge Academy to the site or not. Their numbers are such that their PE facilities they don't have enough PE facilities. I mean, they're just really have grown tremendously. And so we were bringing portables on the site anyway. So we've incorporated that into the plan to bring portables onto the site.
And that'll show up on the budget aspect of it so that we can understand where that is. I'm very encouraged by this. I really appreciate the manner in which this has been put together. And I agree it has potential for being a really good program. The key here is that something different for students. And we focus that attention and intervention in a fashion where we create a safe environment, yet at the same time make it work, as opposed to shipping them somewhere else where just by virtue of them being shipped and difficulty getting there, et cetera, doesn't start it off very well in the beginning. So I look forward to bringing back a report action item with specific financial things on it, and I much appreciate that a lot of the initial reactions that one has about it have been well thought out and considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron, and then Jen.
Thank you guys very much. When I first came to the board, my liaison assignment was Lewis Opportunity School for 2 years. And in all my years of education and all the things I did, it was tremendously eye-opening. And spent several days or parts of several days there over a 2-year period, including 2 full days where I sat in on the classes, talked to the instructors, talked to the kids. And been on the board where we've had to oversee expulsions and oversee, student transfers. And I think the consensus from the get-go was that something needed to be done here, so this is much appreciated. I don't have a real history of wanting to shut schools down, but in this case, I think this is the better way to go. I'm very confident in Matt and our middle school principals, along with our central office, designing a program that I know will evolve into something that works. I'm excited about a lot of things regarding this change, because I think what happened was the kids that got there, the culture was very, very different. It wasn't a culture that promised success. And one of the classes I remember speaking to, there were 5 young ladies in there that were very serious about their academics, but because of all the other things that were going on, they couldn't really perform at their top level. The kind of interventions that were needed 4 years ago, are very obvious now, and I think we're surely moving in the right direction, because what was needed in those classes was as far apart as you could possibly imagine. It's a tremendous challenge. I guess my questions are, some of my questions were already answered by Bill's questions and Larry's, but as we, move through this model, it seems to me like maybe certain schools will be larger than others and need more resources. Others may not need as many resources. I'm sure this will all come forward as we progress here. But I also think that, this is a time where, I saw so many kids come into the school and then were gone within weeks because it wasn't a culture they could survive in by any means. So my hope is, and I know Matt alluded to this too, it's the idea of keeping these kids in the community. I think that's tremendously important. And so for me, it's a very, very positive step. And, I'm just glad we're starting on it now, and look forward to seeing how it evolves. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Jen?
Yes, will add my voice to the chorus of support for this. And it's been a long time coming that some changes were made with the Lewis program. And I love the process that you went through to get here. I have a few questions some clarification. So if a student is moved into this program in, let's say, October, are they there until through May or through June necessarily? I see that there's a process. I'm just wondering when that
they'll have an
occurs.
individual learning plan with goals, and if they're meeting their goals, then they'll be slowly integrated back into the main campus until they're completely reintegrated, and that could happen quarter by quarter. Depends on how fast the student's progressing through their goals. And like we said, if they fall back, they may be in there, through May.
Okay. I remember the first CSBA that I went to, there's Clovis Middle School was there, talking about its transitions program, and since then I think every time I meet with Superintendent Shields, I bug her about, like, have we looked into the Clovis transitions program? It sounds very similar. And one thing that they said, they had a lot of data about their results, and one of them was that it paid for itself because of students that were generally cutting school more than when they were in the transitions program, but also because it was used kind of as a de facto in-school suspension when it was for the less serious offenses. And I'm wondering if that, I think the cutting probably, we will have similar results from kids who would otherwise cut school more often. But what about suspensions for the sort of less serious offenses? Is that something that this will take the place of, or?
No, not really.
Okay. And the other thing that came up at the Clovis presentation is how critical the choice of the teacher was.
Yep.
That this is it's a very special teacher that's going to really be good and effective in this classroom. And I'm wondering, are you going to draw from the teachers at your campus, or is there going to be, you're going to take applications and interest from across the district and outside, or how does that process work?
We are advertising because it is a special teacher,
Yeah.
especially when what I didn't say was that the focus is going to be around service learning. And so not only will it be project-based and maker-based, but it's also going to be around service learning. So again, that takes a teacher with some skills, special skills, to be able to create and support that kind of thinking and that kind of work with students, especially if they might be with them for most part, most of the day. One of the culminating experiences that I wanted to share earlier, but thought, well, I'm going to hold back, is that what we want students to do is to be self-sustaining on a camping trip where they go, and that this is an earned thing that they get to do once they meet all the goals of their learning plan. Because we know, we've heard how much is gained when a student feels that's accomplishment, to be able to pack in everything they need to use during that time. And think about all of the curriculum, all the science, all the math, all the writing that can happen as you're looking towards that culminating experience. And so we're so excited about this. We really feel that we can provide students an opportunity to change the way they think about themselves and to progress and to move beyond maybe even what they even think they can do. So yes, a very special teacher, and we know that we've already hired a couple. So
I think it's really exciting. Thank you.
I also want to add, yes, the response by the middle school principals, their ingenuity, their creativity, their passion, I think is testament to the quality of the staff we have at every level. I also want to let the board know, and we'll be bringing this back in the future, but we talked about kind of the moment created for change. This was kind of a forced one because of the Arch Charter remodel and deciding that the only place they could really go would be the Lewis campus. So this pilot had to happen, and we will certainly grow and improve by what we learn. In addition, the LCAP funding, we are much more sensitive to collecting data and metrics about, is this investment the right one? So going into it, we will be looking at how are we measuring our success. But ultimately, what I wanted to share with the board is this is the beginning of a larger, broader conversation about what we do in alternative education. We looked at Nueva Vista last year, realized that some of our small necessary schools are not accredited. What does that mean? What are we going to do? We have key retirements happening in some key areas in some of our small necessaries. So it is an appropriate time to really think and a district our size, quite honestly, probably needs a program larger than Ridgeway to serve the nearly 9,000 secondary students we have, that there should be more seats available for alternative education that does not require years of failing before that option is provided. So as we have a very large discussion with multiple stakeholders about what does the future look like, that will certainly be coming back to the board for programmatic reasons, for budgetary reasons, thinking about all of those options. But this idea that there are things we can offer our students where a comprehensive site doesn't necessarily fit, but it's not merely a place to fix students by doing the same thing over and over again. And so we want to look creatively and build on assets and offer options earlier so there isn't a history of failure that we have to rewrite. But there are other options, and that will be coming.
Well, I think you got great feedback, and we're very excited about this. And we want to thank the principals for their participation. It's critical to the positive outcome, so thank you very much. And we look forward to hearing from you again soon as an action item. Okay, let's move on to F2, fiscal report for the French American Charter School Food Service Program.
Sorry. Is that an action item?
No, that was discussion. That's the first time
I beg your pardon. I thought I beg your
That's okay. So this is another discussion item, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Eichmann.
Thank you, President Jay, Superintendent Shields, and directors. As you know, the French American Charter School has a modified meal program, and in November we came back, we're here in front of you and gave you an update on the fiscal standing of the program, and now we're coming back again, and as you can see in your agenda item, that as of the end of May, they were operating at a profit of just under $5,200, and that's about $8,800 higher than what we projected, because actually we had projected at the beginning of the year, or last year when the budget was developed, that they would actually lose, we estimated about $3,600. So, they are doing better than what we anticipated. Student paid participation is holding steady at around 50%. So everything seems to be going well there.
Director Carl?
Two questions. One is the non-participation is about 37%. Do they have any plans to erode that and make that an even better figure?
Good evening, Carl Shields and honorable board members. Brian Nyberg, Child Nutrition Director.
Hi, Brian.
And yes, we'd like to raise those numbers. Originally, the board of the French American Charter was hoping for numbers between 70-75%,
Right.
and very optimistic, great number. In speaking with the Pascal about those numbers and his experience with other private schools in Canada and whatnot, that can be done, but his experience is usually around 60% of, even with all kinds of television chefs and whatnot in participation. So can we get the numbers from 51% to 60%? I think we can with the new chef, Douglas. He's very perceptive to the students and what types of foods that they want to have. So I think there's room for improvement. With that being said, it's great that we are in the black. We've been in the black since we started the program, so that's awesome. A lot of it depends on the free and reduced numbers. Right now, the free and reduced is 20% of the population. Those of the 20% participating is 13%. So between the paids and the free and reduced, it's roughly 64%. So like you said, Bill Carlisle, it's non-participation is 35% approximately. So can we lower that number? Hopefully so. They're getting great foods, great service, all kinds of great things. And but some things are economic, as you know. And so I see the future numbers going at least to 55%.
Okay. Obviously, they make it part of the curriculum, so it's not just, oh, by the way, we're having lunch. It's available if you want. So
Absolutely.
presumably that has some impact. So that leads me to my second question. I'm really pleased with these numbers. I'm pleased with the administrative review of this and staying on top of this because we took a flyer here, and it appears to have worked out to give us that same guarantee again next year. And I don't know if discussions have been had so far on that, but that would be nice from our perspective. And it would seem to me to be something that shouldn't be too difficult for them based on what they were able to accomplish this year.
And I agree with that. The food, as you know, is very volatile right now with the disease, turkeys and whatnot, and chickens. There's a very volatile price of products for next year. So absolutely agree with the reserve guarantee to pick up the shortage if that would be.
So can that be negotiated over the summer?
Definitely.
Okay.
Jen?
My recollection of our agreement was that there shouldn't be a negotiation, that this program only proceeds if there is a guarantee in place. So, I'm glad that we're in the black, but in the event that we're not in the black, I think that we do need that guarantee in place. The one thing that, I'm glad that we're in the black, and that's good, and it seems like the participation is pretty good, but I was a little bit concerned, like Director Carl, about the percentage that's not participating. It might be just that all those kids like to bring their lunch, and they like that better, and that's fine. But I know the other part of the discussion we had with the parent group was that there are people who may not qualify for free and reduced lunch, but they also can't afford the price tag on their daily lunch. And I know that we were assured that anybody who wants the lunch, even if they can't afford the lunch, whether or not they are designated free and reduced lunch students, will be able to get the lunch. And so that's one thing that I hope that that message is getting across to the kids and the parents. And Dr. Guzman is shaking her head yes, and so I trust that that is correct.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll look forward to hearing back from you in the future. Thank you very much. All right, now we move on to F3, the bid award for construction and modernization of the Santa Rosa Charter School for the Arts. Mr. Eichmann.
Thank you. As you know, on June 11th, there was a bid opening for the Arts Charter construction contract. And in your packet is an outline or a table that shows all of the construction firms that did place a bid, and then what the amount for each of those bids were. The lowest bid at the time was Midstate Construction from Petaluma, and I should say that it was the apparent low bidder, because we always have to go back and check all the documents and everything. There was a bid protest that was filed, addressing a couple, or raising a couple of concerns regarding Midstate Construction, and those concerns have been vetted through QKA, the architects, the construction management firm of Counterpoint Construction, and also through legal counsel, and we feel that those have been fully vetted and addressed, and that Midstate is the lowest responsive bidder.
Are there any questions?
Yes.
Larry?
Okay, I went over very carefully the letter we got from the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America, Local 751, and I went over the legal opinion. And I imagine the bid for the framing was substantial. I didn't find the number, but to frame the framework, I'm sure was quite pretty good price tag on it, right? Do you remember what it is about?
I don't know the exact price on it, but there is two different types of framing on the project. There is wood and steel, so it does vary a little bit.
Okay. And then secondly, they thought that the bid, and I'm reading here, was approximately 30 to 50% lower than other rough carpentry bidders, and that prevailing wage would not be paid. So my question is what ability do we have that prevailing wage will be paid, that we can assure that?
We can ask for certified at every single time we get a application. If they don't provide their certified payroll, so we can verify that they are paying.
I would request that we do that. We take a good look so that we make sure that we're within the prevailing wage.
Absolutely.
All right.
Any
Thank
other
you.
Oh, sorry, Larry. Any other comments or questions? Thank you. I have
Second.
a second. Moved by Director Kroll, seconded by Director Pugh. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. Thank you. Let's move on to F4, which is adoption of local control accountability plan elementary district. Dr. Guzman?
Good evening, President Jay, Superintendent Shields, and the board. Tonight we ask for your approval of the LCAP document for the elementary school district.
Okay, how many times have we seen this now?
This will be your third time seeing
Third
it.
time. Mr. Hanel still has a question.
I have a question, and that question is this, that on a yearly basis, these projections are over 3 years, as I remember. So next year, if we find out, okay, we need more supplemental fund, we need more textbook money or materials, I'm not saying textbook, but materials, then that figure can be adjusted.
That is correct.
Yeah, I
It will
just
come
wanted to
out,
make sure that.
how it will come about is in the stakeholder feedback, which all the stakeholders participate, and it will come out through that, and we can make adjustments
And
for next year, for the following year.
Stakeholder feedback is what I appreciate. Thank you. Wanted to make sure.
Director Jay, or President Jay, excuse me.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Whoever you are.
My apologies. This was a really excellent process. The first time had it fits and starts and you had to slam it through. You were very clear about it's flexible, we're going to change, we'll do it. You followed through on that, and it was flexible in the change. And relative to Director Hanel's comments, we'll see that again next year, because that is the expectation, that in fact we will get feedback from all constituency groups. What's working, what's not working, what accountability is there, what are our funding models that need to be there, and we'll see a new one the next time through. And I'm confident of the process now, and that we got it 98% right, and Next time, we'll get it 99% right, and I really appreciate all the work that's been done at all levels to make that happen. So very pleasing.
Director Christoph?
I too want to comment that this has been a huge shift for the district. You know, our funding formula and the whole, everything evolving the way it has, and I know it's a work in progress and it's hard. We talked a little bit last time about getting parents and people involved at the site level, and I was kind of shocked that we didn't get any comments on the web. You know, that for me, after all this work and all the input and so on. But I think as we move along, I think that will change. I think people will, naturally become a part of this process. But I also want to acknowledge the amount of work and energy that's gone into this. And I know it hasn't been easy, and it's been a tremendous amount of work at all levels. And so this is a document that I'm proud of. I think that people have worked hard on it, and both the secondary document. And I thank you guys very much.
Frank?
The document here is truly great, and the one that follows it equally is great. What I appreciate the most is that there's been a desire to step up in a very serious way to target some very serious problems within our district and to hold people accountable. Maybe not people, but systems that can be modified and adjusted later. We've never had that level of almost like microscopic look at what's going on. You can read through the document, you can see some very hard decisions were made, but always in the benefit of the student, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Superintendent Shields?
Move approval, please.
Superintendent
Second.
Well, she can comment on after the move approval. Right?
Okay. So I have a motion from Director Carl and a second from Director Hanel. Roll call vote, please.
No.
We want
No, we want her to comment now. Okay.
Absolutely.
Wasn't sure how I was being directed. Go ahead.
I want to say that I appreciate that the process, that everyone has noticed how much the process has improved, and I want to state we have so many plans in place for further improving the process. One is a calendar that goes throughout the course of the year. I think one of the reasons why we don't have as many public comments is because we heard them much earlier and we were able to respond and answers. For example, the issue about our college and career hubs. I mean, that clearly was something that was missing that people wanted, and we found that out early so we could respond early. And so now that it's in there, people are calmed that they have been heard and that issue is addressed. The need for additional counselors for our neediest students who do need higher intense interaction. We were able to incorporate new positions working with the union that will do just that and can be funded through this manner. So I think in part of it is being much more engaged in these conversations earlier. I think the system is also responding, so you'll see even more discussion about this next year to truly track investments and outcome data. And we are really, it's hard for a system that has been so data poor for so long in terms of meaningful data that people believe in, that measures how students are doing as a result of some of these efforts. And the better we get at that, and it will still continue to be a process, it won't be completely right. There will be lots of ongoing conversations. We have to pick the right tools to measure them so everything isn't a burden. We're not doing things by hand. But as we do that, we'll get an even sharper picture of whether these interventions and investments are making the difference we thought they would, and that will come before the board along with the stakeholders' input to really create an even more vivid picture of what we're doing, where we need to change, and where we need to double down and do more. So we look forward to that as a system, being able to respond in that way.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that I'd just like to comment also that getting data that people believe in is key. And I know as we move forward with our technology, that's always kept in the forefront of our minds. So any other comments? Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. So now we move on to F5, adoption of local control accountability plan for the secondary district.
So before you is the LCAP for the secondary district.
comments?
Second?
That was moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Pugh. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. Thank you. F6, adoption of Santa Rosa City Schools budget for the 2015-16 school year.
So in your packet, you have the updated budget, similar to the public hearing budget. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Director Hanel.
Can you, on circle page 15, I didn't quite understand this, called mandated block grant. The government budget proposal adds new programs to the mandated cost block grant, but proposes no new funding. What is a
So,
mandate?
for the last several years, the governor has proposed $1,000 to cover all of the mandates on school districts. Therefore, he has funded the mandates. What they're trying to do is encourage school districts to go to the block grant, so they're not submitting individual claims for each mandate, but this will cover the services we're doing.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Circle page 19. Concerning the charter schools, it says the top of the page, the enrollment at the French American Charter School is projected to increase from 480 to 417, and I think you mean 517?
No, actually, they're reversed. It's from
Reversed.
417
Okay.
to 480.
Well,
Thank
that's
you.
what I thought it might be too. And then with a projected of, okay, so we should make that correction.
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Motion?
Yeah, move approval with the correction.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Close. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. Okay, F7, this is a public hearing on the Santa Rosa Charter School, no, this is for the French American Charter School.
Correct.
Open up the hearing. Anybody here with comments? No public comments, close public hearing. And now we move on to F8.
Good evening again. So in front of you is the renewal that was worked on by the French American Charter School. With all renewals, Pascal Strisser, the principal, worked with his advisory board, teachers, and other stakeholders, and it was vetted through Stephanie Farland, our charter school consultant, to make sure that the renewal adheres to the state's priorities. As we spoke before with some of our other renewals, you'll see that their state priorities are embedded, but we ask you to take action tonight on the renewal.
Larry.
I have 9 questions. Just kidding. Move approval.
That was good.
Second.
That was great.
That's pretty good. Do you have a second?
Second.
That was hilarious.
A joke and a motion by, moved by Director Hanel, seconded by Director Carl. Roll call vote, please.
Director Hanel? Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. Okay, now we open up the hearing for the Santa Rosa Charter School for the Arts.
Correct.
Anyone here to speak to that item? No? We'll close the public hearing, and we'll move on to F10, which is an action item.
Just as we did with the French American, we're asking for the board to take action on the Santa Rosa Charter School for the Arts renewal. They went through the similar process as the French American.
Move approval.
Second.
Right, got it.
Moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Pugh. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. Thank you. I know you worked really hard on that, on those, Anna. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
F11, second reading on the adoption of administrations in the 4000 series. This is an action item. Any questions?
Move
Comments?
approval.
Wait a second. Second.
That was moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Pugh. Ron, did you want to say something? No, okay. So roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. That is the end of our meeting. Thank you very much. We'll see you at the end of July. Have a great summer.
Thank you.